Hey guys, thought I would do a quick Facebook Live today because I know that a lot of people are hanging around their home or office today after the holiday and they're kind of just cruising Facebook. And what I wanted to talk about today, I keep seeing question recently popping up about how much percent of revenue should go towards marketing for a company that's trying to grow or whatever. And I see numbers all over the place. So it's got to be 10%, trying to keep it to 2%, all these different numbers. And it's a real good question. And so there's a lot of parts to that question. And, one person gives an answer that says, 10%, 5%, whatever. But it's more complicated than that because of the way that various companies do their accounting and the way that some people are thinking about how they're doing marketing and things like that. So let's just come up with an example here of the best way that we can do that. So the first thing to think about is let's first just say that let's just assume that we can do a certain number of calls for a certain amount of money. So here I wrote up a little sheet here. So let's just say we can do 10 calls over here, and we do them for $50 a piece, and that costs us $500. So if we spend $500 on marketing, we get 10 calls or $50 a piece, and we're putting them, basically most marketing is to try to get calls onto our schedule, right? So we're going to assume this is like some kind of a tune-up maintenance offer or something. It's costing us $50 to get onto the schedule, and we have to make a couple of assumptions here so that we can talk and have a conversation about this. So the first thing is we're going to do 10 calls at $50 and spend $500 on marketing. We're also going to make an assumption that one of the calls becomes a sale. Now, how would we figure that? Well, let's just think that in a particular place, an air conditioner system, furnace system, it lasts 10 years, which would tell us that 1 out of 10 would be statistically need to be replaced. Now, I know this may not be your number. Who knows? Who cares? If we're doing 10 because it's an easy number to divide by when we're tracking this, when we're doing this for purposes here. So one of the calls out of those 10 becomes a sale, and the question becomes, what do you sell it for? Is it $5,000 or is it $10,000? So companies who sell it for $5,000 over here, they're going to be spending 10% to get a sale. And a company that sells for $10,000 is going to be sending 5% to get a sale. So now you can see why the numbers are off. Depending on how you operate your business down in here, it can seriously change the way that you're spending money up here for the calls and what the percentage is. So the next conversation becomes, well, how do I change my business down here so I sell it for $10,000 instead of $5,000? Well, there's a lot of parts to that also. The first question is you have to decide to. That's the first part of it. You just have to decide that the darn thing is worth X what it's worth, and it's not worth less. Well, hi, Mike. Just saw you just joined here. So ultimately, that's how it works when you're trying to work out the percentage of dollars to spend to marketing. It's not only what it happens on the top end, because if I could figure out how to get this from $50 down to $25, that would be one thing. If it was costing $100 instead of $50, it depends on what's happening down here, what I'm selling stuff for, or do 2 calls become a sale? Does $5,000 become $10,000 because I sell for a better price? That's better for me with better things. Now, how do I get from a $5,000 sale to a $10,000 sale? Well, number one, you have to decide to set your prices there, right? That was like stupid, obviously stupid, right? To be able to do that. The next part of that is, how do you get past the thought process that's going to say, well, no one around here will pay that much. Everyone around here sells for $5,000 and no one will pay 10. Well, that's in your head, because ultimately you have to decide that it's worth that, and then you have to decide how you, on your business, are going to make it worth that so that the customers will gladly pay it. The difference between the companies who struggle and the companies who do really well is not in just being able to sell more stuff. It's being able to sell stuff at better margins. So it's really a game of margins. And what's really interesting is if you extrapolate this out towards where you said, well, let's do more than one job. Let's do 20 jobs. Let's do 100 jobs. Let's do that. Ultimately, the company that's selling stuff for higher margins is going to do better than the company selling less. Ultimately, they're spending less on marketing as a percentage. because there's two ways to drive this marketing percentage in half, right? There's two ways to drive it from 10% down to 5%. One way is to figure out how to get calls for $25 instead of 50, which is really difficult to do. And by the way, I don't know if 50 is the number, but in this example, I would have to figure out how to get my marketing cost in half somewhere, or I would have to figure out a way to double the effectiveness of it, or I can go down here where I have control over it a lot easier and control how much I sell stuff for. So when I'm working with people, I usually work on both ends of this. We start off with getting the numbers right and making sure the business is as profitable as possible so that you can afford to do the marketing that you want to do. Because let's face it, if this number became 100, this guy's in trouble because now he's spending 20% on marketing, right? And this company over here is still only spending 10. If the marketing cost doubled, that could be a really big deal. Now, I'll give you an example of marketing cost doubling. Right now, currently, this week on Facebook, because it's Black Friday, Facebook costs are through the roof. There's nothing we can do about it. It doesn't mean it's not worth it, but it does mean it's a reality that you have to deal with. Why are Facebook costs through the roof right now? Well, because it's the shopping season and there's only so much ad real estate on Facebook at any given time. So like when you're scrolling through the feed, they don't want every single post to be an ad, right? It's like an average about 1 out of 5 to 1 out of 10 posts, depending on how their algorithm's running, will be a sponsored post, sponsored ad post. So if Facebook is saying that that's what they're going to do, then there's a limited amount of ad real estate that they can sell on any given day. Right now, a lot of companies who don't normally advertise on Facebook are advertising on Facebook because it's the holiday season. Suddenly you've got really big players like Best Buy and stuff that are buying up tons of advertising space because it's their make or break holiday season. So for the next few weeks, it's not uncommon in the holiday season for ad costs across the board in every marketplace to go up, including Facebook or Google or anything. Now Google, maybe not so much, because in the businesses that we're in, our demand services are going to be driving that cost to a big extent. But things like Facebook ads and things like newspaper ads and radio and TV and stuff, most of those ad costs have gone up. So what's really interesting is, again, back here, this contractor here is going to struggle a lot more than this guy because, the cost the larger margin can afford to absorb costs a lot higher. So that was kind of what I wanted to talk about quick today, is how much revenue should go to marketing. Well, the real short answer is, I don't know. Depends on how you get your business set up on the other end. And if someone is giving you a bunch of answers and you're looking through Facebook threads and you're watching these threads in these different groups and stuff, and people are talking about, well, I do this much and I do that much. I'm sitting here as a coach who looks at lots and lots of businesses going, I have no idea what these guys are talking about. Even the guys I respect that I know run a great business, I don't know how they're doing their numbers versus someone else. Now, I know I believe their numbers better because I know they know what they're doing, probably better than the companies who are struggling. Usually one of the reasons they're struggling is they can't do their numbers real well. So when I look at that, I'm going, all right, well, someone's saying they're spending 8%, someone's saying spend 5%, and I'm kind of going, all right, who am I going to believe? Frankly, I'm going to believe after I see the rest of what's going on. What's the customer worth after you buy it? What are you paying cost per lead? What's the value of a customer? So those two numbers, cost per lead and the value of a customer, are the really big deals in that thing. So that's it for what we were just talking about. And if you want to talk, we should do that. Anyways, we'll talk soon.